We are architecture, right? My name is Biju Kriakos. Myself and Kishore Panikar co-founded this practice in 2008. Little houses, small interiors. We also do large master plans. We are also urban designers and planners. There's many layers of complexities within this context that we practice in today. And hence we feel that our designs and our works can't be driven by a single thought. Every project that we do comes with layers of those contradictions and complexities. And if we truly have to create a sustainable project, one needs to kind of engage with all these complexities and contradictions that comes with every project that we do. And so this is one of our earlier clients. We started this project in 2010. Right, so this is an office for a group of lawyers called V. Shashadri and Company, and we were looking to build a 3,500 odd square feet office building in a still plus 2, which is ground is largely left as open, and then 2 levels of occupied floor space above it. We needed the entire built-up area for her program spaces. So, and that to us was also the challenge. How do you kind of bring in our value systems and our thinking of how we look at projects into a project of this scale, and yet respond to that context that it sits in. So the site is located very close to the sea in a neighborhood called Besant Nagar in Chennai. It's a very low-rise but extremely dense neighborhood with a lot of vegetation. So you actually see this site, when we went to the site, it had a small house in it, but it's almost like a void in a sort of a largely kind of subdivided plots. These are 40 by 60 plot, which is probably one of the smallest plots that you can find in Chennai in terms of the subdivisions. Contextually, it has a lot of these series of small buildings, most of them right next to the site. And the other interesting part is that there's a lot of greenery, and this is very characteristics of Chennai's traditional neighborhoods. And the other interesting aspect is, of course, the sea itself. It's very close to the beach sea, and it presented itself with tremendous amount of opportunities, not just the view to the city, but also the wind that comes through it. So we had to sort of capture that into the site. So that's pretty much the context of where the site is. It's largely in section still plus 2 building, so it's essentially a simple box with ground floor left open. So what we have done is that we've kind of carved out a sort of a walkway within that ground floor area. So that's a street. And most of the employees, almost 70 to 80% of the people who work here, actually comes through public transport. What we wanted them to do is to kind of go through a set of social spaces which maximize the interactions. It kind of creates a sense of community within the 2 floors that we have. So people work in 2 floors. This space that is carved out at the ground floor, which is largely a sort of a 5 to 6 feet walkway with a lot of landscape enriching it with an existing tree right at the compound wall, and you have a sort of a series of experiences, and you come in and you kind of explode into what we call as a confined atrium space with a circulation as a staircase at the ground floor. It's a straight flight staircase with a lift that just becomes the kind of in many ways the heart of the project. That is where the maximum interaction happens. You go there today, you will see a lot of sort of greenery kind of start to weave into those spaces. So once that ground is set, what we've done is that, essentially in section it was, you kind of created that atrium space, and then we had these floor plates which kind of came out of it. So we realized that while we created this interesting kind of a social space here, we still continue to sort of segregate them by floors. So we needed to sort of try and find a way to connect these 2 floors. So that's the first floor, and that's the atrium space with the staircase in it. So what we have done is we kind of inserted a glass box into the middle of the office space, and then we also had a little skylight about a foot of cut out with glass openings in it. And the circulation space on each of those floors are kind of organized around it, with the rest becoming the programmed usable spaces. Right, so that's kind of essentially what the sort of the organization in terms of the plan within the each floors. So what it does is that it maximizes the light that could come into the middle of the floor plate. So what otherwise happens is that most of the light is kind of captured at the edges. Right. The moment we did this, the light started coming through the middle of the office spaces, and then the third component is the sort of the requirement in terms of the storage. And being a lawyer's office, there was a lot of requirement for documentation, storage of their various cases, etc. So what we strategically decided is that there was a lot of exposure to the western facade. We said we will try and organize all these kind of storage spaces into the western facade with thin slits, which allows the light to sort of come into that space, because there was a little library space as well. So this is not a space where you work. This is a space where you actually go take the books. It's largely a kind of a storage, documentation, etc. space, and it allowed the light to sort of another layer of thin slit windows in there, which allowed the light to kind of come in a very interesting way into this thing. So it also acts as the protection from the western sun. Then what happened suddenly is that concrete itself kind of became very interesting to us. Once we did that, we wanted to sort of tie this building together. We felt that it is too much of a box, and we wanted to sort of kind of frame this building. So the building actually kind of hidden otherwise. It is completely hidden with all of trees around the side, and it starts to reveal itself only through these concrete bands on the top. So at the terrace level, you have that glass box comes up to the terrace level and almost becomes like an informal space, which is used into the terrace spaces. And these concrete bands, which were doing the function of storage at the lower level, came up and sort of almost framed this building. So it was kind of wrapping up the building. You can see it here. It's a storage space here, and as it comes up to the terrace, it almost frames this, and it starts to frames the views to the sea. So you kind of get a different perspective towards the sea, and this informal space opens up into the terrace. And that concrete redefines itself, and it comes here and it becomes a frames on the street, on the terrace level. And then as it comes down, it starts to engage with the various office spaces. Even though it is just a concrete band, it starts to define or do different things at different levels, and in many ways it brings a character to the building. I think that's probably the most critical part of it. So it's a site which kind of opens the street on the southern side. So the side faces the south street, and it was important for us. A lot of wind comes from the sea, and it was kind of important for us to kind of capture all of them into the building. There was a nice tree at the site there was only one tree. So we finally decided that it was extremely tough to accommodate within that particular location. So we actually transplanted that tree and kind of put it right at the edge of the site. And there was already an existing seat. So these two trees started to frame the building. And then, like I mentioned, the harsh sun is kind of coming from the southwest. So we introduced these wooden louvers, which are largely kind of oriented towards, in a playful manner, towards the southwest, to kind of cut off that light. So what happened over a period of time is that these trees kind of grown big, that you really, if you go there today, you really don't need the louvers from a functionality point of view to sort of protect you from the sun. You will kind of see these louvers in a very playful manner, and you really can't see too much inside. But from the inside, it's very interesting to sort of look out into the trees and to the street. That is another interesting aspect of it. And the main conference rooms and the main work areas are all largely kind of organized in that east and the southern facade. So it kind of becomes a very dynamic facade along that street, which with the sort of the layer of the shadows, it becomes very interesting. In some ways, hence we feel that our project has to be one of inclusion, and our role as architects and artists is largely to kind of find harmonies in these various thought that comes with each of the project that we do, and that's what we do. And you take a little project of ours, or you take a large master plan of ours, there are many layers of these thoughts, And what we really do is to try and find harmony in it. And we feel sustainability lies in that, and it can't come from an architecture of exclusion. And one has to engage with all, and it's very critical in our context, especially in India, that we do, because it goes beyond the sort of the design aesthetics of every project. It has to do with sustainability, has to do with the social sustainability and the environmental sustainability, and also the sort of the economic sustainability as well.